In this video, we're going to talk about Jade Plant, a really super easy succulent, also known as Crassula, how to care for it, how to propagate it, and how to get tons of it for free. This is a jade plant, also known as a Crassula Ovata. It comes in lots of different varieties, and they can grow to be very, very old. It's a succulent, which to me is pretty easy care, although I have some people who have said they have trouble with this plant. So hopefully in this video we can address that and show you how to grow a beautiful jade plant. This one is really big. It's really old. This actually came with my house. It was growing up in the hillside there, and we put in some planter boxes, took it out, put it in this flower pot, and it's doing wonderfully. This variety is really pretty. It has this nice red colorations. I'll go into a little bit more detail about how the color of your jade does depend on where you keep it. But the care of this plant is like many succulents. It does like dry, well-draining soil. It doesn't need to be watered too often, and it really does best with bright light, not necessarily direct hot light. This plant can very easily get sunburned with too much direct light. They can do okay indoors. They can definitely be an indoor house plant, but you do want to maybe keep them near a window or somewhere that gets a little bit of light. They do require light. I would not call this a low light plant. There are different varieties of this. As I mentioned, this one has this lovely red coloration. Some are a little bit more dark green, and the leaves do come in different shapes. Let me give you an example. This is a Gollum Jade. The leaves are a little bit more long, also known as a Shrek ear jade. You can kind of see why. This one has had a lot of direct heat and sunlight, which is also why it's a little bit more reddish yellow. If this was kept in more indirect sunlight or a little bit more of a shady spot, it would be much more dark green. So this is a cute little succulent arrangement I put together. Here's some Gollum Jade, and this is a really cute variegated jade. It's a little bit stressed out, but you'll notice it's still mostly green. Now over here in another area of my yard is another piece that came from the same jade plant. The same variegated jade plant is looking terrible. It's had a lot of direct sunlight on it lately, and here's that variegated jade. It's obviously thirsty. It's really stressed out. It's a lot more kind of yellowish and red. So the stress has certainly changed the color of this variegated jade. This is an area of my yard I call my Crassula corner, because you can see here, this is actually part of the other jade plant that I have. It doesn't get as much bright direct light. It still has the red markings, but it is a little bit more green, and that's because it is in a little bit more shaded spot. This is another variety of Crassula. This one doesn't have any red. The leaves are a little slightly different shape. Here's another Gollum Jade that gets a lot, that is planted directly in the ground. It has a lot of direct sunlight, so it's a lot brighter. It has gotten much bigger. The leaves are much bigger and wider because they have more space to grow, and they have a lot more direct sun. So that's part of the reason they've grown to have this look. Here at my propagation station, this is another little variety of jade, really tiny, cute little leaves. This has not had as much direct sunlight, and you'll see it's much more green. It's also a lot longer. It's stretched out a lot because it wasn't getting very much direct sunlight. So I pulled it out to repot it. Here's another very stressed out succulent. This has not been watered for a long time. It's had a lot of very direct sunlight, and those are yellow. That's not really what you want your jade plant to look like. They're fine, they're still alive. If I take this out and rearrange it, it'll turn more green. These plants will flower in the spring, or when it gets a little bit warmer. They do tend to pop out little flowers. Different varieties have different flowers. These Ovatas have like little delicate white flowers that come out. These ones, I'm not sure what they called. They get more kind of little yellow flowers. They are not monocarpic, so that means that they'll flower. It doesn't mean they're gonna die. They're not death blooms. And then when the blooms are spent, they just kind of dry up and fall off. And I did mention how sun will turn these a little bit more red. they can get sunburned. So this is an example. This is a sunburned succulent. You can see it's got this really dark brown spot, some damage on the leaf. This is sunburn. So you have to find a happy medium, right? You have to make sure that your plants are getting enough sunshine, but not too much direct, really hot sunshine. This plant will survive. It'll be happy. It'll actually get used to this sun. It's almost like humans. They almost like build up a base, but that damage won't disappear. It's probably going to lose this leaf, but you can see it's got some nice little healthy small leaves there. So this plant will be fine. So this is a cutting I recently just put in, so it hasn't established itself. It probably doesn't have any roots, and that's also part of the reason it got so stressed and so sunburned. So how you treat your plant definitely affects how it's going to look. One thing that's nice about jade is similar to other succulents, it usually tells you what it wants by how it looks. So you see this one is pretty lush. The leaves are firm, shiny. It's a little bit darker green because it's not getting the direct sunlight. This is not a stressed out jade plant. This is a pretty happy jade plant living here in the corner of my garden. However, when you get down to some other ones nearby, look a little bit further down, these are the same plants. These were all cuttings that I found on the side of the road. They recently planted. There's irrigation going to this plant. There's not irrigation going to these plants. And you'll notice there's a little bit of a difference. So here's a real floppy leaf, a little bit wrinkled up. It's a little bit more red. You can actually see, I wouldn't call it sunburn, but you can see where the sun, it's almost like a suntan, right? You can see where the sun has been blocked from this. This is a thirsty plant. So see how that's real floppy compared to, you know, look at that compared to this leaf, right? You can't really bend that one. This plant is lush. It's getting plenty of water. It's happy. I mean, when you look at the soil's dry, which is what it wants, but it's getting regular water, as opposed to these, which haven't been watered in a while. But they're succulents, so they're fine. It's nothing to stress about. It's actually a good sign, like this plant is telling me I need a drink. So a lot of that red coloration with most succulents, it comes from them being stressed out, right? So succulents show their stress by becoming a little bit more colorful and red. So, which is not a bad thing, right? Sometimes we stress out our succulents on purpose to get the more bright colors. But if you do have a jade plant that is a little bit more like this, give it a good long soak. So the care of this plant is relatively simple once you know what you're doing. This plant will tell you exactly what it's feeling by the shape and the color of its leaves. If this plant is thirsty, the leaves will become shriveled up, a little bit skinny, bendy, floppy. They won't be so nice and glossy. When they're getting plenty of water, they'll be like this. They'll be kind of nice and chubby. You won't be able to bend them so much, which is great. If this plant is not getting enough sunlight, it'll go very dark in color. Like most succulents, it can stretch. So if you're getting a lot of space between the leaves and it's stretching really tall, that usually means it's looking for a little bit more bright light and you need to put it in a little bit of a brighter spot. Like most succulents, when you do water it, you're gonna wanna water it really deeply. Give it one really good soak, and then don't water it again until the soil is bone dry, until the plant is showing signs of thirst. Like many succulents, they can get rot if they are over watered. They don't want to be sitting in wet, soggy soil. They want to be in really well draining, sandy soil. They want to soak in the water and then bring it inside them and then not be near water again for a while. But now let's move on to potting up and propagating jade because they are so simple to propagate. You can cut little pieces of this plant and create a whole new plant with them. Not only that, they are one of the easiest succulents to grow just from leaves. Here is a little piece that I had before. As you can see, it's really tall. It has the roots included. So obviously all I need to do is just stick it back into a pot and add some nice dry succulent based soil, succulent or cactus mixed soil. This pot in particular, this is a terracotta pot. Terracotta is also water permeable, so it means that when you water it, the water can actually go through the sides of the pot. So it's an ideal type of pot for growing succulents. That's it. This is potted. This is ready to go. Because this plant had roots and was whole, I can water this straight away. So I'll show you how I do that. So when you're watering a jade, when it's ready to water, this is really, really dry. I know that this plant doesn't have any injuries, meaning it's not a cutting. It's fully calloused over. I'm going to give this a really deep soak. Because this is terracotta, the water will soak through. If I just water this straight, the water will flow out. I want to give this plant a really good soak. So I'm going to put it, this is just like a little bucket that doesn't have a hole. I'm going to stick it in here. You can put it in anything, right? Plastic tub, anything you want. And now I'm going to just give it a really good soak. You see the water's there. I'm going to let that water soak through. And you can see it's draining through the drainage hole. And I'm going to water it again. I want to really, really soak this plant and make sure that the soil stays really nice and moist so that the plant is getting all the water that it needs. Now, part of the reason it's in this bucket now, you'll notice, it's also sort of sitting in the water, and I want it to do that. So I'm going to leave it in here, soaking in the water. I don't expect it to soak in all that water, but I'm going to let it now sit in this water for, I don't know, maybe half an hour, till I'm sure that all the water that the plant and the soil want have been absorbed, and then I'm going to take it out. As mentioned, this plant doesn't want to sit in wet, soggy soil, so I don't want to leave it in this sort of cache pot. I want it to come out. But I'm going to leave this here for a while till that water soaks in. But what do you do if you want to make more jade plants out of existing jade plants? So that is where propagation comes in. Luckily, jade is one of the easiest plants to propagate. There's many methods to do so. So propagating this plant is so easy. I don't think I have ever bought a jade plant. I've either ever been gifted it or found pieces of it on the ground and created new plants myself. So a lot of my really big jades were planted in other parts of my yard, and I either cut them or repotted them and placed them elsewhere. That's where this one came from. This one that is quite big right now, this was growing in another section of my yard that I didn't want to have succulents, so I moved it into my succulent front yard. And so there's some parts of it. Let's see, if we look in under here, I will show you how easy it is to grab some more jade and make some more jade plants. So in here, let's use this branch. So you'll notice there's like a full branch in here. I've got some trusty clippers. You could even just use your hands and break them, and I'm gonna cut that. I don't know, it's kind of out of focus, apologies for that. You can see where I cut it, and here is the branch that I've pulled off. Now, what's cool about jade, like many plants, when you trim it up, where this branch has been cut, it will grow a whole new little branch out of there. So you could almost make it like a hedge style plant and shape it the way you want. Many people use these as really cute little bonsai trees because you can see they do look like little miniature trees. This little cutting, if you remove these bottom leaves and this branch as well, which again can be propagated, just cut that off. This could be planted up and it would make a really cute little bonsai. It's kind of the perfect gift. I mean, look at that nice whole big plant. You wouldn't even know it's missing from here. So I just want to show you something that's really common here where I live. There's a big jade and they just drop things all the time. So you could potentially pick that up and grow it and get your own jade for free. So not only will this grow and make like a really cute little bonsai little tree, which you wouldn't even notice it's been taken from there, whole big plant, but all the little cuttings, so this can be regrown, popped into soil, and even the leaves, the healthy leaves, so these nice young chunky ones, you can place that on soil, it will grow a whole new plant. Now, having said that, these leaves that came off the bottom that are a bit wrinkled up and yellow, they're not going to propagate. They're done. They're old. Not much life left in them. Toss them in a different part of the yard. But these younger leaves absolutely will grow whole new plants. But first, you have this. What do you do with it? How do you grow it? So one thing I'll have you notice, this is where I cut it, and this is where I've cut off a few leaves. This is not calloused over. You will really want this plant to callus over before you stick it into soil. If you live somewhere like me, I'm in Southern California, it's now July, it's not gonna rain anytime soon. I could just simply, and this is how all of these plants ended up here, these were all cuttings that I found on the side of the road. All I do, simple as that, stick them in the soil and they're gonna grow. So like I said, these were little cuttings that I found on the side of the road, stuck them in the soil, and this is gonna become a nice little succulent hedge. And you can see, let's pull this up so you can see, here we go. You can see where this was cut, and you can see where all the new little roots are growing out, and this is quite happy. This part of the yard has almost no water. There's no irrigation. I do occasionally come out here with a hose, like maybe once every few weeks, but they just simply sit in the soil and grow, and those are going to grow into lots of nice little Crassula plants, jade plants similar to those ones, and this is going to fill in really nicely. Okay, but say you're not in Southern California and you're at risk of this getting a little bit wet. What do you do? So I have this jade that I just clipped off, and it is not what we call calloused, meaning the cuts are brand new, a little bit wet. And if I was to place this into soil and water it straight away, more than likely this plant will rot. It'll become a soggy mess. So usually when people tell me, what am I doing wrong? I'm gonna guess that most of the time it is because these plants are rotting on them. They really do need to be calloused. Now, there's a few ways to make sure they're calloused. You could either cut it, leave it down a few days and do nothing with it. So that's the thing with all succulents. These nice chunky leaves, the reason they don't need water is the water is in the plant. They are desert plants, they're drought tolerant plants. The reason they're prone to rot is because they already have the water in them. So you could cut this, leave this for a few days. You could leave this for a few months. It'll still stay alive and you could still propagate it, no problem. If you're a little bit impatient like me, there's a few things you could do. You could just simply take your pot, fill it with dry, making sure it's dry soil. Here's some more of this cactus mixed soil. You'll notice it's really chunky, really dry. It's got a lot of perlite and vermiculite in there. And then just place your plant in it. And you will notice this is a tiny pot for this big jade. That's fine, right? We're just trying to get it to root. And this actually would work out pretty well. It would be happy enough in this pot for a little while. The roots will eventually grow big, but while it's rooting and, you know, until it really gets big, a tiny pot like this is just fine. Now that's it. That could be my plant from that one little cutting. While this is rooting, I'm not going to put this in direct sunlight because that will stress the plant out. You want the plant to not be stressed. So we'll keep it in the shade here, or if you are in your home, bright indirect sunlight. If it's on a windowsill, maybe a windowsill that isn't south facing, so it's not getting like direct sunlight while it's rooting. And then this plant will have a little bit of a fighting chance. Similarly, this little thing, just stick it in there and those will root and they will create whole new plants. So you'll notice something like this that has a little bit of stem, just pop it in here and new little leaves will start to come out of there. Now, the other method of propagation is leaf propagation. So these plants propagate really, really easily from leaves, and almost every variety, whether it's Gollum or these little tiny ones or the regular Crassula Ovata, which are these standard kind of oval jade, they propagate really easily from leaf, and I'll show you how to do that next. If you find yourself with a nice, healthy, thick jade plant leaf like this one, whether it was given to you from a friend, whether you found it on the ground at Home Depot or whatever, this will grow a whole plant, and fairly quickly actually, compared to some succulents. And it's so simple. Just place it flat on the ground like that. And this is the thing with most of these succulents. These aren't jade, these are different plants, but I almost consider it like if the leaf had fallen off the plant itself and fallen onto the ground, this is how it reroots itself. So eventually a little pup will start growing out of the tip of this leaf, and you keep it on the leaf. You don't detach it from the leaf. You let the leaf kind of shrivel up on its own. Here's a different plant, but same principle. There's a shriveled up leaf. You leave them on the leaf because the leaf is actually sustaining the pup while it's growing, while it's getting roots. And let me see if I can find a jade. Here's some that were grown in this method. They've already lost their mama leaf, but they were grown that way. Let me show you, let me see if I can find some examples in my big pot of jade. Okay, coming over to this big jade that we started with, and we look in underneath. Ah, yes, look, if you look inside here, these are leaves that had fallen down and have started rooting on their own. Here we go. Here's a perfect example. See, these are kind of dried up leaves. They're actually in the ground. They're actually in the soil. They've rooted themselves. Let me pull this out to see if we can show you how that rooted. And that looks like that came from a stem, or maybe it created a stem, but I didn't have anything to do with this. This is what the plant is just doing on its own. It's just creating its own babies on the ground. Here's another one. So you can kind of just see how this little plant just planted itself, and it's a little baby jade plant. This is a jade that was put in a little flower pot for me, and I actually cut it out. I actually cut it and put it in another planter. I left the stem, and these two little pups popped out of there. So it's a pretty resilient succulent. Now to wrap this up, I'm gonna show you a cool plant. This is my neighbor's, the fence between our house and our neighbor's. Do you see this jade? It's, so I'm about 5'4". This jade is, I don't know, 5'7", 5'7". Let me see if I can give you a better look. So if you have a look at this plant, I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna guess this plant, look how big some of those branches down there are, right? Look how big and tall this plant is. This could be a 50-year-old plant. It is huge. These are just some of the, it's huge, it's old, goes all the way around there. It's just totally ignored back here along the fence, but pretty cool. And I mean, you know, it's a pretty resilient plant. So that is it, I think. That is my Jade Plant 101. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments. I'm always happy to answer anything. Or if there's any plants that you would like me to feature, if you have any questions about, if you'd like to see a video on, let me know. If I have it, I will be happy to make a video about it. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and of course subscribe.